In Philadelphia, just a few blocks away from the historic Independence Hall, where the Founding Fathers debated the United States Constitution and, of course, the Declaration of Independence. Vice President Harris has already toured the debate site. She's also spent the last week holding mock debates with her team in Pittsburgh. Meanwhile, former President Trump is expected to land in Philadelphia this hour. We're told his team has held informal sessions going over policy positions. Tonight's debate will last 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. There will be no live audience and no opening statements. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, 2 minutes for rebuttal, and 1 additional minute for any follow-ups. Microphones will stay muted while the other candidate is speaking, unless, of course, there is a significant crosstalk. I want to bring in John Dickerson. You know him well. He is normally in this chair, but has been busy getting ready for our special coverage here tonight on CBS. So, John, let's get straight to it. How much will this debate matter in terms of moving the needle? 56 days to the election, a lot of eyes on what happens tonight.
Well, you'd be crazy after the first presidential debate to say it might not mean anything, right? The most significant presidential debate ever was the first one, and Joe Biden's candidacy disappeared because of it. But political science and history tells us pretty much that in a closely divided nation where everybody's very partisan, the debates actually don't move things very much. But, this is now my second but in this response, Kamala Harris is not a super well-known candidate. Usually by the time candidates get to the debates in October, they're well-known, and that's why it doesn't change the race much. So for Vice President Harris, it's an opportunity to cement some impressions for people and maybe unwind some misimpressions. And so that's what makes it perhaps a debate that could affect the race a little bit more than we'd traditionally expect.
What does each candidate have to do to keep the supporters and then hopefully attract more voters? We know that Vice President Kamala Harris, this is only her first time on this stage, running for president in a debate, while former President Donald Trump, this will be his 7th.
Yeah. Let's start with former President Trump. His supporters are so locked in. The enthusiasm is high. They're locked in. He's done a series of things over the course of his career in life to test their allegiance. And it turned out it was true when he said he could shoot somebody in Fifth Avenue and not lose support. He's not going to lose any of his supporters by almost anything he does. Now, the question is, how committed is he to trying to pick up some of those supporters who left him in 2020? Republicans who don't like him, who voted for Nikki Haley, who are going to sit out. Are they even available? And will he bother going for them by trying to act presidential? He has tried that many times in his history, and he's never really done it. So that's the question really for him tonight. For Vice President Harris, she has 2 challenges. One is what I talked about earlier. People don't have a strong impression of her, or they have a light impression and they want to lock it in. So she basically needs to do more work on her own persona as a somebody where the audience can imagine her sitting in the Oval Office. That's her big task. And the other is just dealing with the chaos created on a debate stage by Donald Trump, which mostly means not taking the bait.
I wonder sometimes how many people are quietly going to support Vice President Kamala Harris the way that they quietly supported Donald Trump, but maybe weren't as boisterous about it. You hear so much talk about, the fiery person who gave it to you straight now sounds like they just go on this long tangent, and it's been a turnoff to some voters who did vote for him in the last time that he won.
Right. So what you're talking about is kind of either the quiet Harris voter or the quiet non-Trump voter.
Right.
But the problem is there are also quiet Trump voters, people who may not want to admit it in public because their friend doesn't like Donald Trump or whatever, but they're going to vote for him at the end of the day. And that's why turnout, who actually moves on the way they feel, will be such a crucial part of this campaign. But it also, when it's this close, we're not going to know until we know.
Yeah, and I know people focus on policy. We want to hear more about policy, but those one-liners go viral every time.
They do. But I'm going to make a stand, as I have for so long. We're electing somebody who, when they put their hand down on the day they take the oath of office, they will be in charge of all the nuclear weapons, troops in more than 150 countries, and responsible for 377 million people. The one-liners get passed around, but this is a super serious job.
Consequential. We'll be watching. Thank
Teresa.
you. Well, John Dickerson, again, thank you for joining us. We'll see you again for the debate coverage later tonight. And you can also catch him on Stephen Colbert. I heard you're going to be there as well.
True enough.
Let's turn now to CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns, who is at the debate venue in Philadelphia. Caitlin, take us inside the Harris campaign. Tell us what the mood is like there and what you're hearing about how the vice president has been preparing for tonight.
Yeah, well, as John said, this is a very serious job, and the Harris campaign has been preparing for this kind of with that in mind and kind of knowing that this could be the only time that these two candidates meet, and also is her chance to really introduce herself to voters and actually do no harm to her campaign, which has already seen a lot of momentum, a lot of money, but it has also seen in the past few days the polls kind of go back to where they were and settle into a neck-and-neck race. We know that she has been preparing very intensely, has had mock debate sessions, has had an advisor, act as the stand-in for Donald Trump. And she's also had to navigate this rule that was proposed by the Biden campaign originally, which was to mute the microphones, and that will be the case tonight. So she won't likely have those kinds of opportunities she's had at past debates to kind of interject or make this kind of prosecutorial case against Donald Trump. So doing that with those muted mics will be a challenge. But, Drake, it's interesting because she is the sitting vice president of the United States. But when you look at polling, there are voters who are saying that they need to know more about her and they want to know more about her policy proposals.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier that, Donald Trump, the former president, has done this 6 times before. What type of debate prep can we expect in reference to what he's been doing to get ready for this evening?
Yeah, as I mentioned, these candidates couldn't be more dissimilar, and their debate prep strategies reflect that as well. Donald Trump's campaign likes to kind of pride itself on the idea that they don't have these kinds of, deep debate prep sessions like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden did, these strategy sessions, these mock debates. Instead, they treat the campaign trail and interviews and conversations with advisors and outside allies as kind of that debate preparation, focusing on conversations about issues and conversations that he's had kind of off the cuff as well. We know that Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman, has been advising him on this debate, and so has Tulsi Gabbard, the former Democratic congresswoman who actually has experience debating Kamala Harris as she did in the 2020 primary. But this is, I believe, the 7th debate that Donald Trump has participated in.
That's right.
And his campaign has been kind of setting expectations.
The candidates, as you know, will have their microphones muted while the other is speaking, which the Harris campaign actually opposed. Why were they against it, and how did the campaigns finally reach an agreement?
Well, kind of originally, if you remember those debates between Biden and Trump in 2020, especially that first debate in Cleveland, they talked over one another. The viewers couldn't hear what they were saying, and it just turned into a shouting match that really turned everybody off. And so the Biden team wanted those microphones muted so that the president could get his points across without being interrupted. But, that is a kind of a different situation that happened because it actually served to kind of benefit Donald Trump in a way and kept him a little more disciplined, I guess, if you can use that word. And the Harris campaign wanted to unmute those mics. The campaign settled on muting the mics as they agreed to in the original kind of debate parameters. But what the effect of that could be is that, remember that moment that Kamala Harris had debating Vice President Mike Pence, or then Vice President Mike Pence at the time, when she said, I'm speaking. And that was a kind of viral moment. Will she be able to have that kind of moment with a muted mic remains to be seen. But again, this is the first time that these two are meeting each other in the same, they've been in the same room together, but meeting each other for the first time. I'm also going to be looking for that initial body language. Do they shake hands? Do they acknowledge each other? Politics has become so divisive, but especially these two candidates really dislike one another viscerally. You can see that in the campaigning. And so how does that kind of manifest itself on the debate stage tonight? We'll be watching.
Yeah, it's funny how you mentioned that, those little details that we will all be looking in terms of the body language and whatnot. Also, we know that even when you mute someone's mic, if they're talking loud enough, you might be able to hear what they're saying.
Yep.
Caitlin Huey-Burns for us in Philadelphia. Thank you. Tune in for the first presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's hosted by ABC News, but you can watch it right here on CBS News 24/7. Well, some scary moments today in Atlanta after two airplanes collided on the tarmac at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. CBS News' Omar Villafranca has more details from the scene.
Just after 10 o'clock this morning, a Delta Airlines flight heading from here in Atlanta to Tokyo started taxiing when it clipped the tail of a smaller Delta commuter jet. Now, the wing of the bigger plane nearly ripped off the tail of the smaller plane. Some passengers on the bigger plane said it felt like they hit a pothole, while passengers on the smaller plane said they did feel the impact, but everyone remained calm. Good news, no one was hurt or killed. The smaller plane was actually heading to Louisiana. All of those passengers got off the plane, headed to the terminal, and got on other flights to head to their destination. Now, the NTSB is investigating this incident, and Delta says that the mishap here did not affect operations at the world's busiest airport. Jerika?
All right, Omar Villafranca, thank you. Donald Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, is amplifying a viral claim on social media about migrants in a small town in his home state of Ohio. In a post on X, he wrote that there are reports of illegal Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, abducting and eating people's pets. Our CBS News confirmed team has verified this is false, and there are no credible reports of this actually happening. Executive editor of CBS News confirmed, Rona Tarrant, joins me now. So where did this false story come from? I mean, it sounds so bizarre.
Right.
And it got so much attention online.
Exactly. So we spoke to local officials who said this claim has actually been circulating for some time. But over the past number of weeks, it seems the source of why it went viral was a post in a private Facebook group. So we tracked this down to a local crime group in Springfield, Ohio, where a person said that their neighbor's daughter's friend's cat went missing. So there's no first-hand knowledge.
Wow.
And that they couldn't find the cat anywhere, and they eventually tracked it down to a Haitian immigrant's home, and that when they found the cat had died, and they were preparing to eat the cat. Now, again, no first-hand evidence and no evidence given for this, but the claim, obviously very dramatic, very distressing, and it went viral online. People also started saying they had proof of Haitian immigrants eating ducks, eating geese, and of course then this week it hit the mainstream when J.D. Vance posted about it, as well as Elon Musk.
What are officials saying, and has J.D. Vance made any comment about this since agreeing or sort of spreading this disinformation?
So we actually spoke to police, to city officials and to park officials, and we said, do you have any evidence of this happening? All of them said they have no credible reports of this happening and that there is no evidence that any of this has happened. What we do know about Springfield is J.D. Vance has spoken about it before. It's a city of about 58,000 people, and they have had a large influx of Haitian immigrants over the last number of years, particularly since the pandemic. Some estimates around 10,000 at least. So city officials have said, you know, this has caused some tension, and they are actually asking for additional support. And they also have pointed to the Haitian immigrants, you know, contributing to the community as well. But they have also told us that there are additional false claims that have targeted these migrants too, including that, you know, for example, that they're squatting in homes. And they've also said that those are not true as well. So this is actually part of several claims that have targeted these Haitian migrants in this city.
Dangerous rhetoric. You know, CBS News, as you know, received a lot of comments online in response to this story, claiming that there's proof that this really did happen. What have you found?
So there was a police body cam video that people have been posting online saying this is proof that this actually happened. So we actually tracked down that footage and we found that it came from a police department in Canton. So this is actually a different city in Ohio. And it was a very distressing incident in which a woman is accused of killing a cat and attempting to eat it. The incident actually happened in Canton, and the woman featured in the video is actually from Ohio, and she is not a Haitian immigrant. So people saying this is proof of this incident in Springfield, but it's actually from a different city, and it's not related to Haitian immigrants.
You know, I think this is a point in history where it is so important to have people like yourself and our confirmed team to do that digging, so that if you were confused, hopefully you're not anymore. Rona Tarrant, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Andrew Cuomo sits for hours of questioning on Capitol Hill. Our Scott McFarland is there for us with the latest on the investigation into the former New York governor's response to the coronavirus pandemic. Plus, a hurricane is expected to hit Louisiana tomorrow. We have a forecast ahead. Stay with us. You're streaming The Daily Report.
These are the stories
1, 2, 3, go!
of we, the people.
We're trying to generate our own hope.
It's a huge deal.
I'm enabling them to feel valued.
Eye on America. Weeknights on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
I had progressively fallen deeper into the world of online sports betting.
The risk is the rush.
What do you think is driving the spike in popularity?
I think it's legality.
If it's legal, I'm going to use it. There are ways to bet when you are 18.
We've created an epidemic of child gambling.
You can't walk into a male dormitory in a college campus without sports betting happening.
It's America's most neglected problem.
I use sports betting as a way to escape, when in reality, I'm choosing self-destruction. Whatever I had left, it was gone.
The purpose of the industry is to get you to play to extinction. And that means until all your money is gone.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides. Stream our expanded one-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
exclusively on CBS News 24/7, the streaming home of CBS News.
People with developmental disabilities were once sequestered by the hundreds of thousands in institutions.
Many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
Disability activists have since torn down barriers blocking them from living at home or in the community.
We conclude that Title II of the ADA requires states to provide community-based treatment for persons with mental disabilities.
But of the 16,000 people who remain in state-operated institutions, half are in 5 states, and Illinois is one of them.
I don't want to live in the institution. It makes me feel discriminated against.
Do you think there are people living in institutions in Illinois that don't need to be living there?
Yeah, because they're proving it as soon as they get out.
A powerful storm is set to hit Louisiana this week. The National Hurricane Center says Francine is gaining strength and will make landfall tomorrow as a hurricane. The storm has already dumped rain on parts of Mexico and Texas. CBS News' Dave Malkoff shows us how people in Louisiana are preparing. Dave.
Hi there, Jerika. It's already starting to rain on us as nearly 3 million residents along the Gulf Coast are under a hurricane warning. Francine is gaining power and may make landfall right here where I'm standing in southern Louisiana as a Category 2 storm. A lot of people here in Terrebonne Parish have gone through a storm that was a Category 4 just 3 years ago, and they have not even begun to rebuild after that. A lot of people still have parts of their homes that are under construction since the storm that came through 3 years ago. I just got off the phone with the Lieutenant Governor, Billy Nungesser. He was telling me he believes that the levees are going to hold in this parish, but it just depends on how long the storm tends to stick on top of us and how much water could dump. This is one of the waterways that leads to the intercoastal. We saw a lot of barges coming out from the Gulf of Mexico and into here so they can put them on hurricane moorings and they can hope for the best here in southern Louisiana. Jerika?
Dave Malkoff for us in Houma, Louisiana. Thank you so much. For more on the path of this storm, here's meteorologist Alex Wilson from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Francine on its way to the coast of Louisiana, expected to make landfall during the mid part of the day on Wednesday, bringing a lot of threats. We're talking wind, we're talking rain, life-threatening storm surge near the coast as well, starting up with the increasing rainfall by midday as the winds also ramp up. Again, that landfall likely coming on Wednesday afternoon. Places like New Orleans could be looking at flooding because of the heavy rain in the area. We will see inches of rain across sections of Louisiana into Alabama, Mississippi, even western parts of the Florida Panhandle. There's going to be the threat of tornadoes, torcon of 3 tomorrow. So severe weather accompanying these landfalling tropical systems, something to watch for. Again, possibility of power outages, not just because of the severe weather, but also just because of the gusty winds with this storm. Rainfall to come through Thursday, plenty of 5 to 8 inch amounts, and that'll extend all the way up into parts of the Mid-South, the Ohio Valley, with a lot of 3 to 5 inch totals extending as far north as Tennessee. For more in-depth coverage, watch the Weather Channel on cable and now live on your favorite TV streaming device.
Alex Wilson, thank you. A western heat wave is hindering efforts to contain several fires across California. The airport fire in Orange County erupted yesterday and has already scorched more than 9,000 acres. Crews are having trouble containing the fire because it is moving in 3 different directions. Near Los Angeles, the line fire continues to burn there. The National Guard is now assisting crews as they attempt to prevent the flames from reaching Big Bear. Forecasters say the heat is expected to ease up in the next 24 hours, which could provide a window for firefighters to get the upper hand. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo faced intense questioning today on Capitol Hill over his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Cuomo, who resigned in 2021 over sexual harassment allegations, became a trusted voice during the pandemic with his daily briefings. He has since been heavily scrutinized for his COVID-era policy that put sick patients in nursing homes, which health experts say led to more deaths. To recap, in 2022, a New York State audit found about 14,000 nursing home residents died from COVID between March of 2020 and May of 2021. The audit says the former governor failed to disclose more than 4,000 of those deaths. Cuomo has been accused of cover-up in order to boost New York's reputation for its rapid response to the virus. However, he claims these allegations actually distract from the federal government's mishandling of the pandemic.
These are all diversions to blame New York and other states for the culpability of the federal response, which was malpractice. There was no preparation, no PPE, no testing, no masks, no science, no leadership. As one Republican governor said about Trump, the general was missing in action, leaving 50 states bidding against each other for scarce medical supplies. It was the COVID Hunger Games.
So Cuomo was also accused of giving his family preferential access to limited COVID tests. For more on this and what all of this means, let's bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane, who's on Capitol Hill. Scott, thanks for joining us. Andrew Cuomo is not in office. He resigned a little more than 3 years ago. He's also been investigated by the Justice Department, Manhattan District Attorney, New York Attorney General, and the New York State Assembly, none of which brought charges against him. So what is the point of this hearing? What kind of answers do lawmakers want?
Hey, Jerika, this Republican-led U.S. House subcommittee has been working for 2 years on what they say is an investigation to prevent failures from happening during the next public health emergency. And they've been focused on this New York nursing home series of deaths from 2020 from the start of their work last year. And this hearing with Andrew Cuomo beneath the bright lights before TV cameras and before this panel is a bit of a valedictory for them. This is something they wanted to get done before they wrap up their work in December. Some of this echoes what you mentioned earlier. The investigations found that there was this series of deaths in New York nursing homes that the Republicans here emphasized was preventable if Governor Cuomo and New York state regulators didn't allow so many COVID patients to go into the hospital system, then into the nursing home system in the first place. They also accused him of moving the numbers around to minimize to the public how many deaths were occurring in nursing homes. This parallels what previous investigations showed. What Republicans tried to argue here is that Andrew Cuomo was doing so out of a political motive to try to further himself, try to further his career, his prospects, with the public information being minimized in the meantime. Democrats counterpunched as we expected, saying that this COVID crisis was exacerbated by Donald Trump and his stewardship in the White House. This subcommittee, Jerika, has a history of apolitical work at times, not being flamethrowers, but to put this hearing between Labor Day and Election Day just marinates it in the campaign election cycle and the political news of the moment. And it was as heated as people thought it was going to be.
You know, again, though, he's not running for office. He's sort of laid low, if you will, since resigning. What did we learn from the former governor based on his testimony today?
He was emphatic. He was at times visceral with his criticisms of former President Trump, saying it was a federal government failure of epic proportions in 2020 that left the states vulnerable to just the type of thing you saw in New York, where he argues there was more deaths than there needed to be, not just in New York, across the country, and emphasizing at times that former President Trump could have done better and should have done better. But there were New York Republicans on this panel as well, and they countered, saying it was Governor Cuomo, then Governor Cuomo, who failed on the job and then tried to minimize, if not erase, some of those mistakes from the public record. This is the type of thing that has been years in the making, but Jerika, it will continue from here. The subcommittee has now subpoenaed records from now Governor Kathy Hochul to get more records on what happened during those impactful moments between March 2020 and May 2020 when deaths were so widespread. But fundamentally, Jerika, what this committee has said it's going to do is investigate the failures of the COVID response, and it's hard to get past the nursing home deaths during those initial months as being anything but a massive failure worthy of investigation. But Democrats will question why they had to do it today of all days when the world is consumed with politics.
Yeah, and the former governor expressing sympathy for those who lost their lives during that pandemic. Scott McFarland on Capitol Hill, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, we'll go back to the battleground state of Pennsylvania, where the debate is happening tonight. We'll check in with the politics editor of CBS Pittsburgh about what voters there want to hear and whether tonight could change their minds. You're streaming The Daily Report.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen, because nothing ever happens in East Palestine, but it did.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars.
Resident, please evacuate. Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes.
Did you ever have these problems before the derailment?
No, ma'am.
This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing, bronchitis?
That's a hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else.
This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here Comes the Sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
Sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate.
Might make you look before you launch.
If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to the Daily Report. I'm Jerika Duncan. Here are some of the additions to our top stories. Tonight is the first and possibly only time Vice President Harris and former President Trump will face off on a debate stage. There's no live audience, no opening statements, and candidates' mics will be muted when it's not their turn to speak. While preparing for the debate, a source tells CBS News that Harris and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton spoke over the phone this weekend. Clinton, who debated Trump 3 times during the 2016 election, offered her advice. Harris has also been preparing by holding mock debates. Meanwhile, sources say Trump's preparation has included reviewing policy positions with advisors. Trump won a coin toss last week to decide podium placement or the order of the closing statements. He elected to have the final statement of the night. John Delano, joins us now. He is the political editor of KDKA, our station in Pittsburgh. John, our latest CBS News polling shows that voters in Pennsylvania are split on how they're voting for. It's 50-50 for Harris right now versus Trump. As you know, Pennsylvanians very, very well. You've been the political analyst at KDKA for 30 years. So that's why we're talking to you tonight. You've talked to many of the members of the cabinet currently, former President Trump, Kamala Harris. So do you think that there's room for the debate tonight to change people's minds based on all of the background and knowledge that you have?
Well, first, Jerika, it's great to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. And yeah, I guess I have a few years on me covering elections over the last 3 decades, one way or the other. Can't help that. But of course there's room to change people's minds. We've got 2 months to go before November 5th, and that essentially means that there's opportunities to persuade some people. Now, I think it's true that there's a lot of hardening of the lines in support of Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. But the measure in between, the people in between, are really going to make the difference in this election. And I do think this debate, just remember the last debate with President Biden, that changed everything.
It sure
did. So
did.
something could happen tonight. It's why everyone ought to be watching CBS and watching the debate and see what transpires. But I really do believe that there are people who are not wedded to one candidate or the other firmly here in Pennsylvania.
John, how should both candidates pitch themselves tonight to those undecided or on the fence Pennsylvania voters?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. And of course, it's one that I'm sure the campaigns have agonized over for months, trying to figure out, if I'm in a debate, what am I going to say and do? I think for Donald Trump, it's really to reassure. And again, we're talking about people in the middle who don't know quite which way they're going. For Donald Trump, I think it's to reassure people that he's not nuts, that he's not crazy, that he doesn't go off the wall one way or the other, that he's not a misogynist, that he's not somebody who just attacks, but rather focuses on his accomplishments during the 4 years of the Trump administration. I think that's going to be key for him. For Kamala Harris, I think it's reassuring people that she's really up for the job. There's a lot of questioning as to whether or not she is capable of doing this job. And I think there's every reason to believe she is. After all, she's been vice president, a U.S. senator, a state attorney general, a district attorney. I mean, she's got years of government experience, far more than Donald Trump. But the question is reassuring people that she's on top and that she has specific policies that people want to hear about. I think that's her goal tonight. They're both different goals, but they can both achieve their goals in one debate.
Yeah, and we just had a graphic up there talking about, do you know what the candidates stand for? So really, like you said, hitting home on who are you and who will you be if you are in that seat. According to our CBS polling as well, the top factor when considering who voters will vote for is all about the economy. That's a pretty broad topic, as you know, specifically in Pennsylvania. What are the the major economic issues facing voters right now in the Keystone State?
I'll answer that question, but I want to add this, Jerika, if I may, and that is that this election is really about the future. And so whether you hearken back to the Donald Trump future, because he would say that's what he's delivering in the future, or to a different vision of the future from Kamala Harris, I think both these candidates will need to tie that into their message this evening. And the economy is very important in Pennsylvania, and there's a different way of approaching it depending even on which part of the state you live in. I think we're going to talk about one of those issues in a minute. Yeah. But the truth is that people are feeling the pinch. Wages have not gone up as high as some people would like. Unemployment is down. That's good. But I think that there's still a lot of concerns. And it's not clear in people's minds whether things were really any better under Donald Trump than they are under Joe Biden. Both candidates will make the case for why they are better either now or better 4 years ago. And I think that the voters will be listening really strongly to the message on those kitchen table issues.
So that other topic you're referring to is fracking. We hear this all the time, especially in your great state of Pennsylvania, which I also used to live in. Shout out to Philadelphia. What is fracking, though? Explain that to our viewers, and how big of an issue is this for voters in Pennsylvania?
Okay. Well, fracking is really an important part of natural gas delivery. It's a method by which you extract natural gas, which is the cleanest fossil fuel in America. It's also one that has issues because methane gas can be emitted and can cause problems. And there's some issues with respect to water use in the fracking process. But essentially, it's drilling straight down, and then like a spider web, you have tentacles that reach out for miles that collect the natural gas and pipe it back up. Natural gas is the way in which we heat most of our homes in western Pennsylvania. And we, of course, are the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. We have a lot of natural gas, just like Saudi Arabia has oil. And it's a big issue in western Pennsylvania. It's also a concern to environmentalists because of some of the reasons I cited earlier. And the politicians who are good at this, and Governor Josh Shapiro is one of them, and his predecessor was too, they insist they are not opposed to fracking, but that we will find better ways to capture pollution from fracking and to keep people safe and sound. You noted I had interviewed President Biden. I had 4 interviews with Joe Biden during the 2020 election. And Jerika, in every single one of those interviews, he made a point of saying, I do not oppose fracking. I do not oppose fracking. So obviously the candidates think it's an important issue. It's not as important in the eastern part of the state where you were at in Philadelphia because they don't frack. Right. But out here in the western part of the state, really a critical issue. We're going to watch and see if anybody talks about it tonight.
I think they will. My bet is that they definitely will bring it up, especially just because there's been so much attention on Pennsylvania.
I think so, too.
All right. John Delano, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure.
I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right.
Thank you. Another reminder, the first 2024 presidential debate airs tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's hosted by ABC News, but you can watch it right here on CBS News 24/7, so make sure you stay with us. Now to the Middle East, where Israeli forces struck a densely packed humanitarian zone in the Gaza Strip early this morning. Dozens of casualties have been reported in Khan Yunis, with several people still unaccounted for. Israel's military says the strike was targeting Hamas officials believed to be hiding in that area. On another front, though, President Biden said today that the killing of an American activist in the West Bank appears to be an accident. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer has been following the story and has the very latest from Tel Aviv. Liz?
The Gaza Health Ministry has now confirmed that 19 people died in Al-Mawasi tent city in the southern Gaza Strip last night. The Civil Defense Forces, a Hamas organization, said an Israeli airstrike left blast craters in the sand up to 30 feet deep. The UN Secretary General's office condemned the attack. It said heavy weapons in such a densely populated area are unconscionable. But the Israeli military says the strikes managed to kill 3 Hamas commanders who were directly involved in the October 7th attacks. A few hours ago, the military also released new video of the cramped tunnels where it said the 6 hostages killed last week had spent their final days. The Army also published the results of an initial investigation into the death of Aysenur Agi, a 26-year-old American woman who was shot in the head by an Israeli soldier last Friday. The soldier, according to a statement, was likely aiming at someone else, but the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said that is no excuse, that no one should die for simply attending a protest, and that the U.S. would make it clear to senior members of Israel's government that its security forces need to make fundamental changes to their rules of engagement. Jarika?
Elizabeth Palmer, thank you. The U.S. and U.K. imposed new sanctions on Iran today after formally accusing the country of supplying Russia with short-range ballistic missiles to use against Ukraine. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and British Foreign Secretary David Lammy say they are restricting Iran Air, an Iranian airline, from flying to the U.K. and Europe. The airline is accused of transferring the weapons to Russia. Blinken says Iran benefits because it then receives technology, nuclear, and space information from Russia. Secretaries Blinken and Lammy will be in Ukraine tomorrow to discuss more defense support. To Russia now, where officials say more than 140 Ukrainian drones targeted the Moscow region overnight, killing at least 1 woman and injuring 8 others. It's the first death in the Moscow region since Russia launched its invasion of the Ukraine more than 2.5 years ago. Moscow's mayor says at least 14 drones were shot down. The attack also forced authorities to close 3 airports outside of Moscow. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Air Force says it also shot down 36 Russian drones overnight. Still to come, women in Afghanistan have had their freedoms cut back once again. We'll discuss the strict morality laws now imposed by the Taliban. You're streaming The Daily Report.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded 1-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
And we are taking a live look right now at former President Donald Trump arriving in Philadelphia ahead of the debate with Vice President Harris. He is set to do a walkthrough of the debate studio shortly before the event tonight at 9 p.m. local time. It looks like he is preparing to get off the plane there as the camera zooms in. But we haven't seen the former president get off of that plane. But again, his plane just arriving moments ago, getting ready for that 9 p.m. local time, Eastern time debate. We will have live coverage right here on CBS.
A big part of us died with our children on August 26, 2021. But we want everybody to know that ceremonies like this provide a small but meaningful breath on relief in our ongoing journey of grief.
What you just heard was the mother of one of the 13 American soldiers killed during the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Their troops were posthumously awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, the nation's highest honor. The ceremony was led by Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, as Democrats and the GOP accuse each other of politicizing events surrounding the chaotic withdrawal. Yesterday, House Republicans released a report accusing President Biden of prioritizing optics over safety. But Democrats in the White House blame the Trump administration for making a deal with the Taliban that ultimately led to the withdrawal. The group regained control of Afghanistan and declared a new government, which no country currently recognizes. 3 years after the Taliban's takeover, sweeping new laws are limiting the already restricted freedoms of women and girls in Afghanistan. These so-called morality laws were recently approved by the Taliban's supreme leader. For women, these rules include bans on speaking in public, traveling without a male guardian, and a ban on eye contact with men outside their family. Face and body coverings are also mandatory. Punishments for violating these rules range from a verbal warning to imprisonment. Friday, 12 United Nations countries, including the U.S., released a statement about the laws saying, quote, "We condemn in the strongest terms the Taliban's continued systemic gender discrimination and oppression of women and girls in Afghanistan." Vonda Velbat-Brown joins us now. She's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution and the director of the Initiative on Non-State Armed Actors. Thank you so much for joining us to put all of this in perspective. As you just heard, several countries have condemned this new law. Is there anything else that governments can do that don't agree with these changes?
Well, thank you for having me on. The condemnation is absolutely appropriate and needs to be resolute and, frankly, go beyond the 12 countries that have issued the condemnation. There has actually been a rather consistent international condemnation of the Taliban's approach toward women, which can be appropriately called gender apartheid. There have been many delegations from Islamic countries, Islamic religious scholars, going to see Amir Haibatullah and try to persuade him that his approach to women is unacceptable. Unfortunately, these calls have had little effect. And in fact, we have just seen very considerable hardening at the time when there was hope that, in fact, some easing of the restrictions would take place. So there are sadly few tools left that for international countries, such as the United States, would amount to completely cutting off any relations with the Taliban. That cuts across other interests, such as counterterrorism interests, and also is very unlikely, actually, to change the Taliban's supreme leader's attitude. So unfortunately, there is no easy policy solution to instigate change in what is horrendous and unacceptable situation.
Yeah, just words right now, like you said, to condemn them in hopes that other countries will also come together and speak out about what's happening there. We know that education was already a threat to Afghan women, but why these strict laws now? What is this really all about? What is the Taliban saying, the reason behind this?
Well, officially the Taliban is claiming that this is consistent with Sharia, the way Amir Haibatullah Akhundzada interprets Sharia. But there are possibly other motivations as well. There has, frankly, been substantial pushback against the laws, not just within Afghanistan, not just from the very courageous Afghan women, but from even within the Taliban leadership. Some very senior members of the Taliban, including actors such as Sirajuddin Haqqani, have privately, and in some cases not so privately, spoken against the restrictions on women. Many Taliban leaders privately articulate that they strongly disagree with many aspects of those, such as denial of education. Yet this has not influenced Haibatullah's positions. And in fact, after about a year plus of pushback, slow walking of many of his policies, and in fact, local violations of some of his policies, we see this tremendously restrictive document, which I expect is also about his asserting power and saying any pushback, any opposition to me will be met with dismissal.
It'll be interesting to see what the reaction from the Afghanistan women might be in the days and weeks ahead. Vonda Velbab Brown, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Still to come, a walk in space like no other, a billionaire blast off on the world's first privately funded spacewalk. You're streaming the Daily Report.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time. Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's going to be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift. Stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love.
Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Oh, hi, sorry. Americans are using a record amount of wireless data. Can you believe that? According to I really tried to incorporate that into the story. According to an industry survey from a trade that represents a major wireless carriers, people in the United States consume more than 100 trillion megabytes of data last year. That's a 36% jump from more than a year ago. For reference, 1 megabyte can hold 1,000 pages of plain text. Americans are also spending plenty of time making phone calls. 2.4 trillion minutes were spent talking on the phone, according to that same trade survey. And this survey, they must have people that love Beyonce there, because it says that it's enough time that you could listen to Beyonce's full Cowboy Carter album 31 billion times. An impressive feat considering it was 27 songs. Who knew? Well, a 4-person crew blasted off into the orbit on SpaceX rocket today with big plans to make history. The mission has been dubbed Polaris Dawn. Its goal, to attempt the world's first ever commercial spacewalk. The crew is also aiming to set a new record altitude for a piloted Earth orbital mission. Polaris Dawn, the mission, was funded by billionaire entrepreneur Jared Isaacman, who is also making the 5-day trip. This mission was supposed to launch last month, but weather delayed it several times. Well, Trump has just arrived in Philadelphia for the debate tonight. Up next, it's a special presidential debate edition of America Decides.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here?
What is the answer then?
Do you know why? You want me to just keep going?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong with that argument?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told the government that? Why won't you say the word crisis? You're not answering my question.
This really
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What do you mean?
What does that mean in
Did any of that make sense?
What's your response?
What happened?
Why?
It's time for the CBS News Original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
There is no more room in our city.
New York City